Hello, college esports fans, and welcome to a special coaches interview here with our very own League of Legends coach, Michael Swisher. Would you like to introduce yourself to all the fans at home? And
My name is Michael Swisher. I'm the head coach
got it right. Let's go.
for the Utah League of Legends team. I've been here for a while. Last year I was like kind of the assistant coach. Before that I played for the team, and I've been here ever since its Crimson Gaming days. So I've been around for quite a while.
You were the top laner during kind of the PAC-G tournament days. A lot of Ornn for you, if I remember right.
Yeah, quite a bit of Ornn, quite a bit of tanks. It was kind of the AD carry show back then, and it's kind of the way it works.
First thing we kind of want to talk about is what's kind of new for the team right now. New season, we haven't really seen the team play much since we kind of brought in some new talent. Are there any new players on the starting lineup that fans can expect to see here?
Yeah, so James left to go pursue medical school. So we have a master's student, a mechanical engineer named Austin, and Henry, who's not really decided on what he's doing yet. There are two new AD carries. We have a 10-man roster again.
All right.
We picked up a freshman named Duncan, Friendly Guy Live, who's our top laner. He's behind Rain. We have a new jungler. McKinley is no longer with us. He went to go coach Crimson Gaming. So we have a new jungler named Rick, or Ratan. We have a brand new mid laner from Korea.
Oh.
He's a transfer student. His name is Sam, or Babjao BBQ, which in Korean memes give me barbecue. Our two supports are the same. Austin is Mfex, and Henry is Dark Neorn.
Do you kind of have like a starting lineup set in stone yet?
I don't really have like a solid answer for that. I think the biggest thing is when you kind of get into CLOL, you will have more like match experience, more flexibility. I think one of the things that I want to do is each player kind of has their own unique identity, their own ability to pick different champions. And as a drafter, I really like to change things up and make sure that my players get to show off what they want. So I have a couple of ideas that I want to implement. So it'll be more flexible than like a starting five. We'll have people go in and out depending on what we want to do.
Yeah, we saw that a bit last year, especially in the jungle wool with Kraydon and Drakkar kind of switching out for compositional style-wise. So you expect to see a bit more of that this year then?
Yeah, specifically in the top lane, I think Friendly Guy Live brings in a lot of like safer picks, a lot of like easier stuff to blind pick, and Rain is more of like a counter picking person. He causes me some anxiety with what he wants to pick, but he's more into counter matchups and picking range champions and stuff like that. So he's more of like a red side player. Thomas is more of like a team fighting jungler with stuff like Nunu and Jarvan and stuff like that. And Rick is more pick early game kind of carry player. So I think we have a lot of room to play with combinations. So I don't think anything's like set in stone.
You guys are all really first name basis. I've noticed some of the other teams are a bit more about the tags. Is that like a conscious choice you made as a team, or did it just work out that way?
Like sometimes I do one or the other. It's kind of arbitrary in how we do it. I think we've developed more of a first name thing, but some people just kind of refer to themselves as their in-game name. Some people don't. Sometimes I refer to the same person in two different sentences as one or the other, and it just kind of is interchangeable.
But I want to go back to something we touched on earlier, that James has decided to stop saving our lives in tournaments and start saving some actual lives in the field of medicine. I think just kind of there's been like this narrative around the team for a long time that we're all about playing through the bot side, relying on kind of the James carry show, and just kind of retrospective as someone who played on that roster, coached for that roster, how accurate would you say that kind of description was?
It was really accurate. James is an excellent player by every measure. He was vocal, he was talented, he was mechanically reliable. We really relied on him for his shot calling capabilities, his ability to carry team fights, and so we've kind of needed to reorient ourselves quite a bit.
I mean, how do you adjust with that kind of hole being left open? Has one of the new ADCs really been able to fill those shoes, or have you had to reprioritize, change the identity of the team?
We're definitely a different team now. We play a lot differently. We are more of a solo lane focused team. Our AD carries in particular is a very safe player. When I first saw Austin, he was scrimming against us on the Crimson Gaming team last year, and he was just like this annoying carry that we could never lock down. We'd even lose games to them because he was so efficient at staying alive. Our team is definitely more solo lane oriented, where we want to get stuff going around our solo laners, get them snowballing, get them strong.
Do you have any thoughts about that first match, kind of who your opponent is? Is there any history of playing these guys before?
It's actually funny. Our first opponent is Humboldt State University, which is actually where my sister goes.
Oh.
They're not really particularly big in the League of Legends scene. I think it'll be a good matchup for us, and I'm looking forward to see my players really get after it.
All right. As we said, because I believe the tournament you're in now kind of has a bit of a Swiss format. So kind of the first one's always kind of a toss-up with Swiss, but kind of going forward, it only gets harder.
Gets a lot harder. Week 1's kind of like you don't know what to expect. Week 2 gets a good matchup. Week 3's difficult. Week 4 is always the struggle matchup, and then week 5 and 6 are the battle for playoffs.
New Drakes, new Elder buff, 2 Rift Heralds. Oh my! How has that kind of impacted some of your strategies?
For me in particular, I'm looking at the numbers of the dragon, and it's really hard to convince players to not like make that the sole focus of the game. Dragon souls are brand new. 4 dragons, you get the soul, and they're really potent. It's really hard to convince players to kind of like wait. Like Rift Herald is really strong. As you said, we can get 2 of them. So I personally think it's a little bit better to prioritize that Rift Herald, make sure that you're getting plates for your solo laners, getting them strong, and then using the power of the solo laners to kind of contest later dragons and make sure they don't get a soul. The new Elder Drake is insanely broken. A lot of people don't like it, but I like having a buff that kind of just defines an end game state. There were too many games in the history of competitive League of Legends where you could have like an 80-minute slugfest. And I like the fact that at some point in the game, Elder Drake is the god buff that executes someone at 20% HP, gives you a ton of free damage over time. It's a game ender. And so to force teams to come to a neutral objective that straight up ends the game is personally, I think, good for game design. And
especially if you just like start off a best of 5 with something like that, and then
one new thing that my supports complain about is on the new support items, you still get the executes, right?
Right.
But at some point in the game, when you get your full support item, you don't get any more executes on the minions, which is kind of silly, to be honest with you. I really think that like you should still have that in the game. I think the map edits with the dragons are cool. So like on the 3rd dragon, the map changes. It's hard to really plan around it though. There are certain champions that really excel in certain maps. So I think changing your gameplay to the new map edits is really important and kind of jarring.
Yeah, and it's kind of continuing on that same theme. Since you can't plan for the Drakes, do you feel that there maybe are some champions who you just like, well, if we get Mountain Drake, this character suddenly stops working, and they just kind of get shoved to the side and picks and bans, or?
I think the biggest one are tanks with Mountain. Mountain Drake is pretty terrible unless you have a tank that like hits stacks of Mountain. And then specifically, Olaf with Ocean Soul is unstoppable, and Olaf is tier 1 in the new jungle. You know, you really prioritize being able to clear is really, really nice. So with Olaf being able to be a menace in the jungle, if you get Ocean Soul on Olaf, he quite literally can 1v5 games. He is so efficient. He just is attacking, proccing the Ocean Soul over and over and over again, regenerating all of his HP. It's kind of insane.
Would you consider kind of Olaf a problem your team needs to solve, or a problem that your team can cause for other people?
He's really hard to deal with. He kind of just runs over other junglers. He doesn't really have many good counters. Our team has some pocket picks that we like to pick into Olaf, so we're confident there in certain matchups, but he kind of just runs over the early game. So in scrims sometimes, when early games just like go awry, he just gets like 5 kills in early dragon and just kind of like rolls through the game. So
I want to take a step back, look some bigger picture things. What are your goals for the season? What are the hallmarks of success for the program right now?
I think the biggest thing is just getting into playoffs. That's, step number 1 every season. Get into playoffs, qualify for playoffs, make sure that we get a playoff slot, and kind of like fight from there. We clearly don't have the same synergy. Years prior, it's like we had played together. Like the core players had been together, playing together for a while, and this year we've had a big shakeup. Get to playoffs, get that best of 5 where we can really like draft around some of our flex and go from there.
You specified the best of fives. Do you feel like just the team excels in those scenarios, or what's kind of going on there?
I think our flexibility is really, really important, and our ability specifically within our solo lanes to flex champions around, play different compositions, have really clear win conditions with drafts that the other teams can't really kind of grab onto is something where we would excel. So I think in a best of five situation where we can isolate other teams in the draft is a good situation for us.
Hopefully, we'll get to see that in practice as the season goes on. It is kind of exciting, just with so many viable players that can just change the play style of the team. I'd certainly be interested in watching an extended set with players coming in and out, and the whole. It would certainly keep things fresh as certain matches. I feel like I watched the same game happen 3 times.
Yeah. It's nice to have a change of pace, especially I think League of Legends as a whole is upgrading. It's getting better. There's more to do, more champions that are viable, more compositions that are viable, and you'll see more variance in what's being played, especially at collegiate levels where, the top tier isn't nearly as important as it is in pro.
What's more important, comfort or meta? And that's kind of where I went. What's your perspective on that?
I generally ban what people play. At the end of the day, when you're fighting for your life, you want the champion you have a ton of games on. You're not the best player in the world. You don't need to be the best player in the world, but you need to contribute to your team in a constructive way. Picking comfort is generally what people do. When I'm drafting and my players are in do or die moments, they want that champion they play. Aphelios is really strong, but you don't have that level of experience that you might have on Caitlyn, who's been in the game for 8 years.
You were talking about putting an increased prioritization on the Rift Herald, and just the most recent patch, it's got less health now.
And so I think players are naturally going to see the changes, take the Herald a little bit more. It's clearly better.
Right.
It is definitely easier to take.
But you're saying it was good enough before, right? Just wanted people to notice.
It's a nice nudge in the direction. I think people will start taking Herald a little bit more. The way the game kind of operates is Rift Herald spawns at 8 minutes and Dragon spawns at 5. You just have a really, really clean window where you can take that early Dragon and then swap your pressure around to the Herald that spawns at 8 minutes, and it's a really clean transition of tempo. I think we'll see a little bit more priority on it, but I think it should have been there from the beginning.
Thank you again for coming in, sharing your insights with us, and a little inside look into the team and what's to come in the next season. Is there anything we'd like to say before we sign off here and let you go?
Come support us. We're going to be live at twitch.tv/University of Utah Esports. James still talks about some people chatting in chat during his games years later. It's really cool. So please come support us, talk in chat, show your love. They really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And so, if you want to see kind of all these things we've talked about put into practice, that's the place to be. And if you want to stay on top of all University of Utah esports news, you can follow us on Twitter at @UUtah_esports. I have been Archie, Legend of Sleek Smith. You can stay up to date with all of my nonsense on Twitter at Sleek Esports. And do you want to do a Twitter plug? Is that something you care about?
I actually am trying to get off of social media. I'm trying to.
Oh, okay.
This is literally this past week. I'm deactivating all my accounts.
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
Okay,
yeah. so don't follow Swish at OrnLover237. Just don't do that at all. And we'll see you around.